I'm sure many of you know, from listening to exorcists before, that one of the devil's greatest lies is convincing people he doesn't exist. And here's a sad example of someone who fell for that very lie.
I seen a quote that said, once you leave religion, the devil also leaves you too. And that literally blew my mind, because now that I'm not a Christian, the enemy does not exist in my life. Like, I cannot relate to being attacked by an enemy, this entity that's after me, this devil that wants to destroy me. Like, I cannot relate to that, because the devil just does not exist. This idea of someone ruining your life, I think it absolves people of accountability and understanding the real world. Once you step out of this indoctrination, there is so much peace.
God forbid a soul should die without having repented of its sins, because even if it commits the gravest sins on earth imaginable, it can always be forgiven and be saved, even up to its last breath. But this is how Satan leads us and the world astray, by reminding us that there is no hell, which is a lie, and which the world tells us, and that there are no consequences for our actions because we are all victims of society. There's no responsibility for our moral behavior because we have an excuse. The world is to be blamed for it. The government is to be blamed for it. Our parents are to be blamed for it. Our schools are to be blamed for it. The bad court systems and judges are to be blamed for it, but we're innocent. And this is Satan's lie.
If the person doesn't believe in the devil or evil spirits, then the devil would have them exactly where he wants them to be, in disbelief. So it would be the case, is the devil going to attack somebody that's really devout or unbelief? You could say that if the devil has already won somebody over, then there's really no reason to attack them. The devil is going to really go after those he still stands to gain something from. And I don't mean that to be negative or critical of somebody who's an atheist. That's just my perspective on that if the person really doesn't believe, then the devil has nothing to gain from that person. Because if the devil were to scare them, then that fear might lead them into a relationship with God, and certainly the devil wouldn't want that. So I would say the devil is happy with the person where they are.
There's one more clip of The Exorcist I'd like to share with you here regarding those who believe the devil's lie. But before that, can anyone explain to me what on earth they're talking about here? All this talk about reptilians?
You do know that reptilians and Draco, the blood sacrifices, the whole Luciferian thing, the kids being killed and eaten, I mean, that humans have been eaten and taken off planet, etc., and used for slaves in other colonies, etc.
I hate to say that, but that's far worse than what you've just said.
It's far worse.
Yes, far worse.
Anyway, back to the clip of The Exorcist I was referring to earlier. Here's another one, and this time it's Father Rehill. Listen to this.
And I pity them because they're literally in the dark. The new beatitude among this generation is, blessed are those who do not believe, they will not be disappointed. So like, if you're just locked in on, I'm not going to believe this, you're not even open to the possibility. I don't know, that seems to me to be ridiculously prideful, that you could think you've just figured out the whole universe and you know better than everybody else. But it's not my job to convince you. I can come here and tell you my experience, which is what I'm doing. But if you don't believe me, it doesn't have any bearing on my life. I'm sorry for you for not believing me, but I move on. I've got other things to do. So I hope you never experience the devil one-on-one, because it's a frightening thing. But if that's what it takes, God will probably do it. He would prefer you be scared to death and come back to him than let you live without him your whole life.
We are reminded to offer up sacrifices and pray for the conversion of others, that all souls be saved. However, there are souls in hell, and we know this from the various writings of the mystics like Saint Faustina. I think this clip of Father Iannuzzi will be helpful for many of you listening.
Jesus wanted Judas to be saved. Jesus wants all to be saved. He redeemed not most of mankind, he redeemed all mankind, but not all choose to be saved. There's a difference, therefore, between redemption and salvation. So in the fiat of redemption, Jesus redeemed the entire human race, that is, from Adam to the last human that will be conceived. That's redemption. That means he gave us the grace to do all of our thoughts, words, and actions without sin. From the moment we're conceived, we're given this treasure trove of grace purchased by the blood of Christ. We can ignore that, discard it, abuse it, not use it, but that free choice of availing or not ourselves of this treasure trove of grace purchased by the blood of Christ, which is the fiat of redemption, is up to our free will. Judas chose not to use that, you see. He used it in part, but in the end he failed to, and that cost him. So this does not indicate that Christ did not reorder all of mankind's interior simply because Judas was lost or others are lost. Now, why do I say Judas was lost when the church does not teach that? In the writings of the mystics that bear the church's seals of approval, namely the Nihil Obstat and Imprimatur, it is the consistent teachings of the mystics except one or two, and they are vague on this area, that Judas was lost. Now, let's suppose that that's debatable. The court is out, the jury is out on that. All right. Consider that others were lost by virtue of the vision of Fatima, where the Blessed Mother opened the earth and showed to the little shepherd children, Jacinta, Francisco, and Lucia, hell, and they described it as such. They said there was fire, and there were humans walking through the fire, and once they passed through this fire, they were transformed into hideous, ugly beasts. That represents the state of their soul, which is eternal despair, eternal hopelessness, eternal fire. Or consider the writings of the mystic Saint Faustina Kowalska, also approved by Cardinal Wojtyła, who would become Pope John Paul II, and bear the Church's present-day Imprimatur and Nihil Obstat, seals of approval. In these writings, approved by the Church, Faustina describes souls in hell she knew while on earth. She was taken to hell, and describes 9 torments of the damned that do not ever cease. And she said that what surprised her most of her visit to hell with Jesus, who wanted to show her the importance of her redemptive sacrifices so that she could save souls from going to hell, what surprised her the most was that most souls in hell did not believe hell existed. These are her words. Okay. So, just because a soul goes to hell does not mean that Jesus did not reorder that person's soul, their interior. He did. But during their lifetime, after they were conceived and given this treasure trove of redemptive grace, whereby they could, with their good will, do all their thoughts, words, and actions without sinning, under the action of God's grace, they chose instead to abuse or not use that treasure trove of redemptive grace, you see. When we, therefore, do our acts in the divine will, we are reordering with Christ man's interior as well. What I'm saying is not that we are doing what Christ did not do, for what Christ did is done for all time. What we are doing is adding, as Augustine calls it, grace upon grace. Yes, Christ already did the work of redemption. We're not redoing it. What we are is, we are carrying out our work in the work of Christ's redemption. Analogously, consider, to better explain this point, a mother who goes and, or a father, parents, let's say they go to the village and purchase a house in a rural area, and they want to create a walkway from the house to the pond in the backyard which they own. But it's full of thistles and briars and weeds, and they want to get rid of these things so that the pathway is smooth and no one gets cut or hurt along the way from the pond to the house and vice versa. Okay, the parents with gardening tools clear the way. But of course, weeds and briars and thistles being what they are grow back. So the children continue to walk up and down the path, and by their treading upon it, keep it flat without having to cut it over again. Just the constant traffic on that path keeps it down. Well, similarly, Christ, analogously, cut down all the weeds and briars and thorns in our life in such a way that we could go through it without ever being cut, provided we follow that path he prepared for us. And in walking up and down that path, you see, that path that Christ prepared for us, we keep these thorns and briars and thistles at bay. We don't have to be worried about the wolves in this world that we will be encountering. We don't have to worry about these things, though they exist, you see. So by our treading the path Christ already prepared for us, we are fulfilling our work in the role of redemption that he purchased for us. So we are not redoing Christ's work. We are doing our work in his role, in the work that he prepared for us. In this sense, we are co-redeemers with Christ. So in his redemptive passion, Christ assumed all acts to make reparation to the Father for sins and offer satisfaction for them, as well as to sanctify them. He formed the life of his passion in Mary, and he wants to do the same in us. Why? For the purpose of mediating divine mercy and satisfying the divine justice on behalf of mankind.
And just before we get to the end of this video, I'd like to share this with all of you, and I hope all of you have learned a lot from the video so far.
A spiritual, interior assimilation with Christ's interior, in particular, his interior sorrows. What are they? Remember in the Garden of Gethsemane when Christ sweat blood? Well, that's an example of one interior sorrow. He was aware of the souls who would, despite his work of redemption, be lost. That caused him tremendous interior sorrow. Now, when we see people sinning or speaking or acting in an immoral way, it too should cause us interior sorrow. Well, that is what Christ reproduces in the souls who seek to live in his will. They experience something of the pains that Christ experienced when he was aware of the sin of mankind. And it doesn't take long for us to find occasions of people sinning. All you have to do is turn on the TV. All you have to do is look at the magazines or listen to the media. And there's more than enough to go around there to be identified with Jesus in, to offer reparation, satisfaction, and identify with his sorrows. And the purpose of identifying with Jesus' interior sorrows, even when in heaven he can experience the sorrow, is to offer reparation and satisfaction, which is intensely pleasing to the Father, to Jesus, and to the Holy Spirit, and influences positively all of heaven, the angels and saints included. Okay?
That will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned a lot from this video. Remember, if there's any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And until the next one, thanks again for watching, and may God bless you.